welcome back to another episode of SchmoeTalks. That is right, another Monday night. We are back. My name is Aaron Knoll. Thank you guys for joining us here tonight. And normally, as previously said, the plan was to continue our flashback series that we're doing, looking at the previous seasons of the Schmoedown. As I'd said, it was a little more than I honestly remembered, so we're breaking it up, doing it over a longer series of videos. But in the process of setting up one of those videos, I had a great opportunity come my way, and I just couldn't turn it down. And so here we are. He is a former guest on the show. He's been here twice already. He is someone I've only met in the last couple of weeks, but he's a great guy, and I'm glad to have him back once again. And he makes his debut in the Schmoedown in just 2 days. You will see this man playing his first Schmoedown match. He is the Jackal, Jesse Swift. How's it going, man?
Hey, how's it going, Aaron? Thank you so much for having me back on the show. 3 times already. Holy smokes.
Absolutely, yeah. It is, I think you and your competitor now, Amaru, were the first guests that I had on the show. And I think with 3 and 9 episodes, that makes you the most recurring guest. It's weird to think I'm at 9 episodes, but I'm glad to have you.
I remember when you guys just announced that you were doing this. So you're clipping along and keeping the content rolling, which, I mean, that's what you got to do.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad to have you back, man. Obviously, this is the second interview we've ever done with a Schmoedown competitor full on. We had the first. The great John Kaiser was here talking about his draft. But today, we have a little bit more of a traditional interview because we have a competitor here for the first time. I'll get to put the question format I'd come up with into use. And I think it's going to be a fun show. But before we get to that, we're going to go over something that we talked about last week. And I finally have more detail and graphics so I can explain it properly. So I put together this little competition where the first few guests that I had booked for the show all were going to put in their predictions when they came on, and we were going to do a little bit of a competition, and whoever won would get some sort of prize. That's how I originally announced it. Well, a lot's changed. There's actually a format, and by the nature of me having to extend the episodes out and do them over longer weeks, I had everybody submit their predictions through text, which I will display on the screen in just a minute, so you can see that they are post-dated. But I have taken everybody's predictions as I start playing them, and I have put them into a chart. And how this is going to work is, and I'll have a visual for that in a second, is the person with the most correct predictions at the end of the series of matches, which runs all the way through the month of March, will get the choice of one of 3 prizes. They will either A, get to come on an episode of SchmoeTalks with their own topic. So we'll do an in-depth interview focused on whatever specific topic of the Schmoedown they want to talk about. Option B, they can host an episode of SchmoeTalks, and it'll just be whatever I naturally have scheduled. They will have the chance to help host an episode of it. Or C, unrelated to the show, they can also get a booked slot on our other TMG show that we do After Dark, which is our movie news-centered Saturday night hangout show. So they'll have their choice of prizes depending on who does the best. And now we have a system for it as I pull it up here. So here's how this is going to work. They've submitted match predictions for every match from February and March, starting with Laura Kelly and Molly Damon and going all the way to Ben Bateman versus Mark Riley. A correct prediction on a normal match, example given, Jesse versus Amaru, which is airing on a Wednesday. The Wednesday and Thursday matches will earn each person 1 correct point. A correct prediction on a Friday match, which are based off the schedule seeming to be a little bit of the bigger matches with the bigger personalities at the moment, and the undercard matches for the events will get you 2 points. And correct predictions on main event matches, which are the 1 versus match, the main event of the throwdown, and both matches of the, I believe it's called the Battlefield. Is that correct? The third event?
I think
that sounds right. Oh, well. It sounds right. But the
I know
third
there's
event,
the versus coming up, but yeah, I forgot about the next one.
which is billed as a double main event, so both of those will be worth 3 points at the end of the month. That is Roca and Liz Shannon Miller, and then Ben Bateman and Mark Riley will earn you 3 points. So we have the chart here. I have it set up, and obviously this will become a little more individualized as we go on because records will start to divvy up a little bit with the points. But right now, as I said last week, Ryan Payne is the definitive leader. He was the only person to predict both matches at the last throwdown correctly, and so he is in the lead with 5 points. Second place, Andy Sweet, Michael Dingus, and Erica Chia, who are all future guests to come on the show. They predicted the Chandra and Mara match correct, which means they got 3 points for getting a main event match correct. So they are 1-1. Third place is myself, my TMG cohort Matt Beer, and JD Domash, who all corrected the undercard correctly. So we got 2 points. And our records are 1-1. And then unfortunately, my TMG team members Kevin Poss and Colton Roberts, commissioner of TM Geek and host of the Supernova Show, respectively, both did not get a correct prediction on the night, and so for the moment, they sit at 0-2. And so each week, I will, as the matches start airing next week with 4 new matches, we will have updated charts, and we'll get a more detailed breakdown. And as I said, in a month's time, we'll have a winner, and we'll have some sort of prize for them, whatever they so choose. So I want to get into...
Question.
Go ahead. Please.
I'm looking at all those posts dated, the text that you had predicting the winners coming up here, and did they know that I was competing? Because I didn't see my name in there anywhere.
I mean, I did tell them your name was mentioned as a part of it.
The good news is you can't have an upset unless everyone's voting the other way, and at least they'll only lose 1 point, right?
That is true. They will only lose 1 point. So this is something, and it's great that we have Jesse here. Something I'm going to do live on air, since the match is set to air on Wednesday, and this is full honesty. I honestly don't have any clue how it'll go. I don't know if Jesse has any clue how it'll go, but I'm sure Jesse knows how it'll go.
I'm sensing a scrap. It's like I feel it.
True. So here's what I'm going to do. When I was reading through the chart, I realized something genuinely horrific happened. And it's kind of funny you mentioned that you don't see your name. Out of every competitor competing in the Schmoedown over the next month, the only person to not have someone instinctively guess him to win was Jesse, which makes him the ultimate undercard of SchmoeTalks.
It's because I'm an enigma, Aaron. Nobody knows.
That is true.
However,
as somebody who said that I was stuck between you guys because I admit some of my bets were just personal because I know the people, I've made the decision live on air before the match that I'm going to switch my vote over to you, which will have probably absolutely no effect since it is worth 1 point and I won't take the lead with it, but it makes me feel better to know that nobody received 0 votes, and you do truly have my belief in this match, because, I mean, if anyone can beat Amaru, it's somebody else who made it to the Schmoedown.
Yes, I believe technically that is how that would have to work.
Oh, all right, that's true. You would have to be there to win.
To compete.
That is true. I didn't think about that. That sounded better in my head. So here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get into the format that was first introduced back in our first episode as a trial run. But again, because of the formats we've run with since, I haven't been quite able to use it, which is the 5 questions of SchmoeTalks. So these are 5 basic questions that I have come up with that I want to ask every person that we interview as a way to kind of start and lead the interview. And then once we complete these and we have a natural conversation going, we'll get into what everybody wants to hear about, which is the anticipation for this match. All right, so let's get into it. And the first question that we have for Jesse is, when did you first discover the movie Trivia Schmoedown? Everybody seems to have a different entry point. At what point was yours?
All right. Well, I definitely kind of came off of another channel. I don't remember how I started watching movie review channels. I know it was by the time I think maybe it was because Avengers was coming out. So like in 2012, I really started diving into movie review channels, and that led me on to like the very early days of AMC Movie Talk, looking at Man of Steel reviews, John Campea, and of course Campea brought on Christian Harloff and eventually Mark Ellis onto AMC Movie Talk, and from there I went over to the Schmoes Know page, started watching some of those shows, those reviews, watched them grow, and then watched the transition over to Collider, where they started making a bigger thing about the Schmoedown, and then finally having it all come over to the SEN network. I guess that's saying network twice if you say SEN network, so I'll just say SEN. And watching it turn into what it is with like the live events and just everything that they've invested into it, and so where it's rivaling like WWE as a internet sensation for like movie trivia. It is its own sport while being a show at the same time. So I've been around the Schmoedown for a really long time. My vested interest in the storyline and the records and things is something that's more recent. I used to just kind of watch it to do trivia with myself to test my own knowledge and just to have fun with the entertainment value. But now it's I'm more so paying attention, and I'm getting to know these people, getting to know the characters, getting to know the factions. So yeah, it's been a long journey.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely relate to that. I've talked about it briefly on other shows, but I actually came in probably around the same time. I came across AMC Movie Talks. They did like a panel review for The Winter Soldier, which was that year was the first year I really started delving into like film and film criticism, and watching that, then watching Movie Talk, then I think it was a couple of months later I found Schmoes when I was watching a Movie Talk episode. Like the recommended video was the from the podcast, the 20-minute clip out of Schnepp just shitting on Transformers 4 that they did on the Schmoes No Show.
Was Rogue
And
on that episode?
I don't know that I think this was even before Roko was involved with them. Honestly, it was that long ago. And I remember clicking on
So
that.
much.
Honestly, man, it's a shame that he's not here anymore, because I think he'd really enjoy where this has gone. He seemed like he liked getting into that type of stuff. Um, but yeah, so I watched that video, and then I watched the full episode of the podcast, and then I just started watching the podcast weekly, which then obviously, I think 2014 was the first year. Later that year, they were just like, hey, let's do a movie trivia tournament. And, if you guys go back and watch episode 7 of SchmoeTalks, we talked about seasons 1 and 2 of the Schmoedown. And the consensus is it very much was just a bunch of half-drunk people sitting on a couch playing movie trivia for fun.
Absolutely.
And
Baby carrots and the what do you call this?
the spandex suit and
Yeah.
oh yeah. Oh, I wish I still had that image in my computer. I pulled the image from the team's title match where he stood in front of the camera, glory and all, in that thing. It's horrifying, but but yeah. So I very much relate to that, kind of having seen where it's gone, and it is very interesting when you go back, especially because I'm doing it now. When you go back and watch the old stuff, how it's evolved.
Really quick, I'll be fully transparent. I really started caring more when they introduced the inner geekdom, because
No,
that
that's
is
fair.
where my strengths lie, and so that's the ones that I had the most fun watching, and those are the competitors that I'm most aligned with. And so I started paying more attention to the Rachel Cushing, Mike Kalinowski. Now I'd watch a singles match or I'd watch a Star Wars match, but I was most invested in inner geekdom, and
Yeah,
that's
and and you're not the only person who said that. On our last episode when we covered season 3, which the Spectacular held the first Inner Geekdom match they ever did, more than one of our panelists kind of echoed that sentiment of like, yeah, I watched it from time to time and I enjoyed it, but I never really went back and got invested till I started seeing matches that really appealed to my movie interests more. Which I think a lot of people can probably relate to that sentiment of the Inner Geekdom and those really being a core of films they love, getting you into it. Which does lead me to another question, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's go into question 2 that I have here, which is the
number two.
Schmoedown has 3 major components: film knowledge, wrestling storytelling, and it now is sports league setup. Uh, when did you first discover your love for any of these components within your life? So if you love sports or wrestling or film, where did that stem from?
Oh, right. Well, I'll I'll cover the ones that I can get knocked off real quick is wrestling. I watched a lot in middle school. And I guess for most people, middle school and junior high are the same thing. But
Yeah.
where I'm at is ass backwards, and 6 and 7 is middle school, and 8 and 9 is junior high. So you're a freshman in junior high. It's weird over here. But so at a little bit of junior high and middle school, I used to play the wrestling games. I used to watch them. But even then, unless it was somebody that was like really entertaining, like The Rock or Steve Austin stuff, I didn't pay a lot of attention to the storyline. I just watched the matches. And I feel like going into the Schmoedown, that's kind of how I was for a while. So when it comes to wrestling storyline, it is honestly the Schmoedown that brought me back into it. So that's very recent. Okay. I can't speak to sports ball very much. I am just probably the least attached sports fan that you'll ever find. I mean, I'm up in Seattle. The Seahawks went on a winning streak for a little bit. I paid attention for a little bit, and I just don't have the time or energy to watch that heartbreak anymore. So I guess I'll just go to film knowledge. And film knowledge, I used to always watch movies like with my family, whether it be Back to the Future, Princess Bride, just anything that the family could watch together. But I became obsessed with comic book material at a very young age because you had the 90s X-Men, the 90s Spider-Man cartoon, and these were my favorite things. And I only had like 4 channels growing up. So I had Fox Kids. Those were my options. I didn't even have, I didn't really grow up with the 90s Batman. It wasn't on any of my channels, or the Justice League. Right. I only had the Fox stuff. Yeah. And so I watched those, and it wasn't too long after I became obsessed with those cartoons that then you got the X-Men movie and the Spider-Man movie pretty close together. And I think that was the birth of my obsession with film. Like, I started paying attention to nerdy films or geek films or comic book films exclusively, but that started branching out, and I started realizing that I love film. For at a young age, I was pretty much just watching like Iron Man and stuff like that. But then I started realizing that I love the Gone Girls, I love the Night Crawlers, I love anything that's got acting, and so I started getting into all of that. But there's a lot of people that have been into film and cinema as a whole since like age 5. So when it comes to singles, I don't feel like I'm ready to compete with that. But I do have that passion for a vast majority of the films on the Inner Geekdom list. So it started at a very young age. As you can see, this side. I don't know how to do this. Pop figures. I got
Captain America. There it is.
Yeah, Captain America shield. There we go. I get all backwards on the screen, but yeah, I got a bunch of pop.
Oh, there you go. Stuff. Yeah, you see it all in there.
These boxes right here, these are comic book long boxes or short boxes, whatever you want to call them.
Oh, okay. So just collections of comic books in there?
Not a whole lot, but I mean, there's, over 100 in there.
More than I own. No, again, it's very interesting. Like, I like hearing other people's perspectives, especially with some of those, like, the non-geek films you mentioned, because 2014 for me was, like, the big year, and again, I hate that I probably make people feel terrible saying this, but as a middle schooler who was being dropped off at the movies to go, I mean, I don't even care. I'd movie hop through theaters all fucking day, and it's just like, just kind of, oh shit, I got time to kill, stumble into another theater. And like, it was the movies, like Winter Soldier was one of the big ones for me, and that's obviously a Marvel film, and seeing what the Marvel,
like 5 or 6 years apart, I think, then, because I remember I went to see the first Iron Man with my mom. I was 13.
Okay, all right, so yeah, we're not that far. But like for me, that same year, the first movie that I saw that really ingrained a love of film in me was Birdman. And it was just like, I didn't know what the movie was. I knew Michael Keaton was in it, and I figured it was like, oh, are they making fun of the fact that he played Batman? And I walked into it, only person in the theater, and it completely had me the entire time. And just the fact that it's also, it is a very artsy film and how it's made, with the play structure of the 3 long shots, the 1 hard cut, the acting in a play where they're circling the camera like you're watching a stage play. So it is a very artsy film, but that to me was like, oh, there's so much more interesting avenues than just like loving the Iron Man films, which I do love as well, because they're also, for the most part, they're also very high quality films. Yeah, it's interesting.
If I can have 10 seconds, I just got 2 movies at a gas station yesterday, and I think they kind of summarize my taste in movies.
Oh, please go ahead. I'm very curious. I'll vamp for about 10 seconds. There he goes. He goes over to it. He's looking through. He's hiding his DVDs and his pop figures. There he goes. All right.
Okay, so I think this is This is what I got at the gas station for.
Oh, The Nice Guys is fucking brilliant.
And then the
That is a
animated Turtles
brilliant.
movie with Chris Evans, Lawrence Fishburne, Patrick Stewart, and Sarah Michelle Gellar. So like it's
That's a better
that's
cast than you'd think.
Yeah, that
That's a
movie's
great
better than it
cast.
deserves to be.
Honestly, I haven't seen it in years, but I remember watching it and thinking this should be worse. Like,
I think I saw it at a community center. Like I was still in high school, I think, when it came out. And then
okay.
the Nice Guys was so cool. It came out in 2016,
Yep.
which memories 2016. Civil War was 2016. So other
Yeah,
than
it came out right after it.
Civil War, Nice Guys was my favorite movie that year.
Yeah.
Um,
Like,
and Shane Black owed me one after Iron Man 3, so it was nice of him to come out with Nice Guys.
so this can kind of continue the natural conversation, but I'll introduce question 3, which is which element of the Schmoedown is your favorite? The film knowledge, the wrestling storytelling, or the sports league setup? I feel like I know the answer, but you never know.
I, it is film knowledge, um, because it's a lot of fun, and it's fun to feel like you might know more than somebody, but somebody gave you a run for your money. Like it's somebody that you can respect with their film knowledge. But it's, I mean, anyone that says that there's not some degree of a pissing match in the Schmoedown, I think is fooling themselves. There's a little bit of that, but a lot of it's in friendly competition. However, after getting on the draft list, I've had to engage in some of that, like wrestling storytelling or cutting a promo or being a bigger personality. And I have just loved the heck out of that because I grew up doing a lot of drama in high school and haven't
Okay.
had a lot of opportunity to, you know, ramp up and do a little bit of acting or put a character on. So those are my top two. The sports thing is just something that, like, through mitosis, is that the word? I don't know. I'm just kind of absorbing as I go into it.
Right.
Uh,
It's like it's a part of it, so you accept it and learn it, and yeah. No, that's interesting. So I'll go into question number 4 then, which obviously, team strategy and your recency entrance aside, answer how you can. But which member of your team, faction, past or present, really more present, has been the biggest help to you so far in your Schmoedown career?
man,
So for you, it's who was really there for you going into that first match? Who's
um,
been here?
can I cheat a little?
Yeah,
I,
go ahead.
I have a main one answer, but I want to give credit to somebody else,
No,
definitely.
please go
Uh,
ahead.
Koi's been fantastic. I love Koi. He's very busy. He has a lot more people to be in charge of than any of us do, and he's given me some really great advice. He's helped me keep a level head. I have a feeling in that match you'll see that he does great manager work,
He
and
does.
I appreciate that. We've had great conversations, both involving the Schmoedown and outside of it. So I feel like I've got a new friend, right? But the person that has been the most engaging, the person that's taken time out of their day to do some Skype calls with me and do some training matches, do some back and forth trivia studies, just one on one when the rest of the faction's busy, and somebody that I believe you're going to see on my channel here sometime next week probably. And that's William Bibiani.
Yeah.
Bibiani, the beast, is incredible. I love that guy, and it's funny. I realized I was talking about him to my fiance the other day. She's like, "Are you guys like best friends at this point?" And I was like, "I mean, I guess." Like, I talk to him every day about who knows what and the other thing. Talk to him about all the shows that I'm on, and we show up in the chat for each other's appearances and stuff. And out of anybody, like, a lot of people have their own lives going on. Not to say that Bibiani's obviously very busy and he does have his own life going on,
Yeah.
but there's a lot of faction members that I've said one or two words to outside of having our faction gatherings that very much are doing their own thing, and a
Right.
lot of focus on singles or teams. And so I'm in my little inner geekdom world, but Bibiani's not in the inner geekdom world, but he wants to, rising tide raises all ships, and that's what he
Yeah.
wants to do for the team. And I think there's a reason that he's, being considered the Quirky Mercs captain. I think it's earned. I respect the hell out of him. And I can't wait to see what he does against Paulo Yama coming up. So my answer is 100% Bibs.
Yeah. It's unfortunate talking about the predictions earlier. I'm a person who feels that if I know somebody, I can't bet against them. And one of the hardest things I've ever had to do is bet against both of your Quirky Mercs members because they're playing Chance Ellison and Paul Oyama, two guys who I know and have a lot of love for, which was unfortunate. Nothing personal, just business. But Bibbs just seems like the sweetest guy ever. Like, he just seems like a joy to be around.
And we both bond over our cats driving us nuts when we're trying to do streams. We're always screaming at our cats, and I wish I could have recorded the last time we did a video call, because it's just him going, "Luca, get down," me going, "Goose."
Yeah, I don't have a pet, but I have siblings that try and walk in when I do streams, so I can relate somewhat. Um, so with that, we'll go ahead and move on. But that's good to hear though, especially because Bibbs is one of the senior members, so it's nice to know that the people are taking an interest in seeing to your best interests, which is good.
You could probably get a squirt bottle for your siblings too. Just they open the door.
I could. I mean, my brother needs a shower a little more often. It'd probably help, hit him with it. So with that, we'll go ahead and get into question number 5, which is, what is something you haven't done in the Schmoedown yet that you have interest in doing? Now, this can be anything. This can be playing a particular person. This could be going into another league. This could be working under another manager, although I feel like that's not something you'd want to say. Plus, Koi just seems...
want to say it, I wouldn't say it. Like,
no, Koi just seems like a joy. Like, that faction legitimately seems like the funnest to be on. Everybody seems happy there.
Like, I can say that there's other factions I would have previously had interest in, but I got my favorite faction. And so I got, and I would say that I love Winston, and I would have at some point been okay or happy to be a part of Swag, but I mean, that seems to be just crumbling at the foundation. So yeah. I'm very happy to be where I am, to be happy and have an incredible support system. But what is something that I haven't done that I have interest in doing? Well, March 3rd hasn't happened yet, so playing a match in the Schmoedown in general.
Great answer. Great answer.
I mean, I think what I'm looking forward to do is start. And in all honesty, I have no game tape. It's brought up to me daily. Every interview that I do, every time I'm brought up on any of the after shows. So I have interest or excitement towards being out there, being a part of the widely received Schmoedown, having people know who I am, have seen a match, and being a part of the conversation more so than I am already, and just getting more so involved with the community. The amount of people that I'm friends with now on Twitter. Do you think 5 months ago I would have looked at my emails and it'll say William Bibiani just subscribed to you on YouTube? Like that's surreal for me, and getting to know the real rejects and asking them questions about how they run their YouTube channels and doing thumbnails and getting to talk to people outside of the Schmoedown is a lot of fun. So I've diverged a little bit from the question, I guess. It's just my highest interest right now is going forward. I know that's really vague, maybe a cheat answer, but it's just getting in there.
No, that's fair. And I do feel like that's a fair answer, especially because you are one of the, because there's a large number of people involved that have already been in it, and so for them it's something practical that they haven't done yet, whether it's getting a better score in a singles match, or I don't know, if you want to be Bateman, take 60 days to watch Star Wars and compete in a match, like,
or just like raise your overall accuracy. That's sure. Something. Right now, my accuracy is at 0, right?
Yeah, so. And for you, it is getting out there. And I think it's an especially interesting proposition because you are going up against Amaru, who is someone who has been so prevalent within many fan leagues over the last year. And so it does create that interesting kind of dynamic that doesn't always exist between other opponents, where you can see everything you'd like on him and almost nothing on you.
If it's not too late, I got 2.
Go ahead.
That just came up. 1, I want to lose the people that are betting on the Schmoedown a lot of money. And
is that a thing? I feel like that's how you lose money easily.
Yeah. And 2, I mean, if you're going to bet on a football match, I'm sure people bet on the Schmoedown. And then 2, I don't know if you've had the chance to interview him or talk with him. Jacob Whitney.
I've not. No, I've never talked with them at all.
Okay. If you get a chance, our episode on Call to Action, where we had our Schmoebaits, was absolutely phenomenal. But I want to take that guy on. I know he's competing in Inner Geekdom, and he's been on the Facebook page, just seen a rivalry going back and forth. And so something that I'm looking forward to that I have explicit interest in is knocking that punk down and watching his little co-manager, the Juice, cry. You know what? If I face Jacob and he loses, Juice has to shave his mustache. That's where we're at.
I'll save the clip. We'll just post date that
Clip
later.
that out.
We'll bring it back. We'll bring it back. So let's go ahead and get into it, right? We got through the 5 questions. Thank you for indulging that. And so now let's get into it. Obviously, you are a Schmoedown competitor that has yet to Schmoedown. Your first match is set to go in 2 days. You are taking on Amaru Moses. According to the graphic, he is as of yet nicknamed, so I don't have anything for him.
You see the thing he's got going now where he just puts a GIF on everything that just says, "My name is my name."
Absolutely. So let's get into it. So I know obviously you were on this show together. I believe when you were on SchmoeTalks, you guys talked about how you did another show together. So you guys definitely knew each other prior to going into it. What was your reaction when you saw he was the person you were getting paired up against first?
Let me see if I can properly enunciate this. Shit. I mean, we talked about it a little bit, like not to show our belly too much, but we're like, oh, that's a rough first match because you want to brush off, you want to get the rust off, and I was not the first Inner Geekdom player to be picked. I was not the second overall draft. I'm very confident in myself, but outside of going directly into the against the champion at the time, which is not what was going to happen, there's not many people that I wanted to play less than Amaru to start off my showdown career. And I have to give a shout out to my friend David Campbell. Look to see him in the first class league because we were talking on stereo a couple days before that was announced. And I was like, hey, if you could pair me against anyone in Inner Geekdom this year, who would you put me against? He's like, I want to see you take on Amaru. I was like, don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. And then it
worked.
And I messaged him. I was like, you son of a bitch.
What happened was, as he was saying that, he was in Christian's DMs like,
oh, absolutely. He just did copy and paste and just entered it in Christian's DMs like 20 times. He's like, Jesse Number.
All right, I'll stop.
But there's definitely a level of excitement because I was already studying before I even got drafted. But there's different levels of study, and I was studying while kind of having fun. I was looking at that list, and I was like, what do I want to watch, right? And I would have my notebook out, and I was going through the movies and picking things that maybe I had seen, but it had been a while, or something I haven't seen, but I wanted to. And then that match got announced, and I had to ramp it up to an 11, and still ramping it up. And so everything leading up to that, it went from fun study to stress study. Because I've watched some Amaru matches. He's very good, but I'm not an Amaru expert. I don't really know what all of his weaknesses are. So that's the advantage I have on him going in, is nobody knows squat about me. But yeah, so my reaction was a little bit of panic, a bit of excitement, and then I circled back to get my confidence back too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about it earlier, and this is what I wanted to circle back into. You talked about how your love of film initially first came from your love of those core geek films. Well, of course, the year that you go into it, we see Inner Geekdom has expanded massively. All sorts of different franchises. Some that people kind of turn their head to the side and question. Some that you look at it and you go, "Oh, why hasn't that been there all along?" What were your first initial thoughts when you got that list of films in and you went, oh, this is more than I thought it'd be, kind of?
Initially, just from getting the list, I was like, oh, wow, yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I have to study. And so there's a level of excitement. I then looked at the list differently when the match was announced, because then, other than Mara versus Chandra, me and Amro are the guinea pigs. We're the first round of what's this Inner Geekdom going to look like this year. And so if there was anything on there that either of us hadn't seen, we had the least amount of prep time for it. And there's a lot of people that have IG matches that are either like late in March or haven't even been scheduled yet, and I envy them a little bit, because listen, I would consider myself relatively an MCU expert, but you can always go. That's just from watching them over and over again. I have never watched an MCU movie with a notebook. So that's something that now I'm probably going to have to do. First, I want to get things I haven't seen out of the way, but there's going to be a lot of revisiting. So it went from cool, fun, this looks awesome, this is going to be the great equalizer for the matches and for the tournaments, is because they're new to everybody, not just the rookies.
Right.
But you know that all these vets, the first thing they're going to go in on is the new categories because they've already spent years mastering the other ones. So we're still at a little bit of a disadvantage, but I still think this is going to be the year of rookie upsets, and I'm looking forward to that. And I think that some people have said that the IG was getting stale or wasn't as exciting as Star Wars. And I think having all these, props to PJ Campbell, putting all these new categories in is really a great way to liven it up and keep the matches fresh.
Yeah, absolutely. And so obviously, as you said, you are kind of the guinea pig match, but we've had another one air in Mara versus Chandra. What were your thoughts kind of when watching that match and seeing, because one of the things that I like, which is actually a discussion we've had on the side amongst in our own TM Geek League, is like, we had talked even before the Schmoedown was doing it about expanding categories and adding certain things, and then obviously the Schmoedown did it, so it's like, oh well, I guess that's the validation of like, okay, we could do this and not get hated on for it. But the question was always, how do we do it? Is it gradual? Do we just do it? And I like how the Schmoedown just went balls to the wall and said, here's every new category in round one. Like, this is what it is now. Get used to it. What were your thoughts on that match?
I love the match overall. I mean, I think both matches were awesome, but obviously I lean towards Inner Geekdom one a bit more.
Right.
And I felt a little vindictive because I was obviously familiar with the list at this point before watching it. And I remember looking at the list and seeing graphic novels and having like history of violence on them. Like, oh, F me. There's just going to be some study involved. And then to see a history of violence question come up that they both got wrong, I was sitting there, I went, ha! And so that's goes back to me saying that it's kind of an equalizer because everyone's studying the same movies at this point. The match was tooth and nail. I liked watching Chandra go from really confident at the beginning to watching him sweat a little. And I think finally after a very impressive like title defense against Chance, we finally got to watch a god bleed. And I want to see character-wise and story-wise what Chandra does after this because, I don't know how well it's going to be received if you walk around all, too big for your britches and you just got your ass kicked by someone that's been out for 2 years. So you might need to reevaluate that. The match itself was great, though. It was all over the place, and both competitors prove that they are not niche competitors. They don't have one strength. They have strengths across the board. And I'm trying to remember if Mask of the Phantasm is a new addition to Inner Geekdom or if it was pre-existing in there, because now we have both Batman films and animated films.
Yeah.
Just...
Part of me wants to say it was there. It's just not something that's been asked about a lot.
Right.
But again, that's another one where even if it was there before, it stands out like, oh, they're really stretching the depths of what counts, which I like.
I'll tell you, nobody's had a 5-point Mask of the Phantasm question before. That I'm pretty confident in.
Yeah. I don't want to know what that one looks like.
Well, that's
a deep cut.
That's what she was, right? That's what she won with.
Well, true.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah,
but I mean, still, like, come on, that's hard. And to be fair, I actually thought that was a 5-pointer in the way that was gettable because I knew that one, and I'm not the strongest at Inner Geekdom, but I even second guessed myself.
Well, you had like you had a 1 in 8 or 1 in 9 chance of guessing if you had no idea, and if you were confident in the live action movies, then
it's Mask.
It's Phantasm, right? Which is kind of where I just forgot when I was listening to the questions. I forgot about Mask of the Phantasm. Like I was going through the Tim Burton movies, I was going through the Schumacher movies, The Dark Knight, and even Lego Batman, which obviously there's not like bribery in Lego Batman. And I was and I felt so dumb because then she goes Mask of the Phantasm. I was like, oh, you idiot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the same. That is literally the same mindset I work through, where I was like, because all the live action films I've at least seen more than once. So I was just like, okay, it's not the Burton, it's not Schumacher, it's not Nolan, not BVS if they were counting that. And then I started thinking like, was this just a throwaway gimmick in Lego Batman that I might have missed? And that
Yeah.
didn't sound right either, because I know they did a bunch of those where it's a bunch of throwaway lines and jokes and stuff that they were doing. And then it hit me. I was like, wait, Mask of the Phantasm. I'm not sure, but I know everything else is wrong, so that has to be it.
And which, when you look at it that way, it's almost not quite a worthy 5 point question. Like that could have been a 3 point. I think five
Maybe.
points you shouldn't be able to guess, and there was a guess chance there.
True.
Or it should be a lot harder, anyways. But I mean, I probably would have got it wrong just because I'm not used to having Mask of Phantasm on there. And
Yeah, fair enough.
akin to that, I can give a little bit of behind the curtain. Is in one of our practice matches that we did. I was asked the question, when did the first Lord of the Rings movie come out? And very similar to Mask of the Phantasm. I
Oh,
wasn't.
1978?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking. I was thinking early 2000s, and I was trying to remember the exact year. I want to say it was 2002. I should know this. I will.
2001.
2001. Yeah, I have my study cards over here. Okay, I study the release dates prior to going into the matches. But yeah, I know that the animated movie came out in 1978, but it wasn't in my head. It
Right,
was.
you're just not thinking about it. Like,
So I said,
and
yeah,
and
and then
and
we
I,
go
and
ahead.
I think that is a new addition to the Schmoedown this year. That one is a new addition.
Oh yeah,
But I can tell you,
they waited
with
for
like with
Rachel to leave.
with our fan league TM Geek, when we first conceived the league, we put that in Middle Earth. Like that's been there from the get go. And the few times it's come up as a question, everyone's reaction is, "Oh fuck, that does count."
I didn't realize that movie came out theatrically. Did the Hobbit animated movie not come out
No,
theatrically then?
those ones were TV. The Ralph Bakshi's one was theatrical.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. And then there's that weird Return of the King one that was also TV, but also tries to act like a pseudo sequel to the other one. It's not good.
I remember I used to watch the animated movie a bunch because my parents at the time would not let me watch the live action movies because they were
Oh,
too
okay.
adults or whatever. And I was like, this is weird. And honestly, I think that the animated one's almost scarier than the live action ones.
At times, especially now in the modern day, because like you have to respect what they tried doing with the rotoscope animation, but
Yeah.
some of it just does not age very well, and it
No.
makes it look horrifying. Um, Especially when it's like you know that it's like real, like when they do Helm's Deep in it, like
Yeah.
yeah, that's all animated over, but that's also a real battlefield where all these people had to pretend to die in this weird way that could be animated over. Like it's kind of weird to think about, but
But anyways,
yeah,
Mara and Chandra was a really great match.
no, it was, it absolutely was. No, and so that plays into it. I guess we'll go back to the inner geekdom. Which of the new categories excites you the most, especially now that you've gotten to see some of them in play? Like, which of these really does interest you the most, whether
Well,
it's off of base knowledge or like deep dive studying?
that was a question that was proposed to me on Schmoebates, and my answer remains to be the same. And I think it's Planet of the Apes, not
Yes.
for what I know in the category, but kind of more what I don't know, and I'm excited to study more because I have seen some, but not all of the films. I won't say which. And the thing about Planet of the Apes is, in many ways, it's kind of like Star Trek in the generations that it spans.
Yeah.
Like you start in, I believe, 1968, and then you go all the way up into like the 2010s.
Yeah.
And so that's, you're not only appreciating a geek film, but it's really a study in cinema in general.
Yeah.
Watching how it transcends across generations, see different directors. That was the point I made on Schmoebates. Is I was like, there's not a lot of other franchises where you see this many different writers and directors and stuff. You got Tim Burton, you got your Matt Reeves, and you got some of the guys doing the older movies.
Right.
Schaffner, I think, and I'm excited. I'm excited to go into that. It's
Yeah.
coming up shortly on my study guide here, and also it's a study in humanity, and it holds a
Yes.
mirror up to us, and we get to look at our pros, cons, and how we are flawed as a human. And I just think that it's an underlooked franchise and genre that is finally getting some due respect. it stands on its own as far as like sci-fi films go. Planet of the Apes is definitely its own genre, so it's cool that it gets a new slice or gets its own slice.
Yeah, it is. And this is one of them. Obviously, I can kind of bring it back and compare it to our league, because it's what I know more so deeply. When we started talking about expanding, the first one I said was Planet of the Apes, and my justification for it was like I know it's not something people traditionally think of as like core geek, but it's hardcore sci-fi, and I said
Absolutely.
it's based on literary, and when you look at all the classic geek franchises, it was brought to life before Star Wars, it was brought to life before Lord of the Rings, and it was brought to life before Star Trek even. Because they, I believe, the first, well, no, Star Trek may have aired a year or two before the show, but still, the point being, it's around that same era, 1968 with the original. And I certainly can see that, and I like that it sheds light on films that probably don't get a lot of watch. Like I've seen all of the new trilogy, and I think they're all brilliant films. And I've seen the original, which I think is a classic. It's such a good film.
But then you
But
got
there's
Beef, Escape.
yeah, there's four sequels there that I know exist, but I've never seen them. So I know as a competitor for me, that almost be a point of excitement because like I don't know even about the critical reception. Like I know nothing about them. I just know they exist. So I don't know what I'd be walking into if I were to ever watch those as like a study thing. So I certainly think that is a point of excitement, like for a competitor, especially if I'm sure a number of them have never seen them because it just doesn't seem like something that gets brought up too often.
And also, if you do your study and sit through all those movies, you're probably going to get this season whatever questions asked correct if you're paying attention, because I'm sure there are going to be a lot of either surface level or IMDb questions.
Yeah.
So, nothing to stress about yet. We're not as deep into Planet of the Apes as we are Middle Earth.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, not to give free advice to my co-competitors with IG, but I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, and I would say even one of the things I noticed, which is why I don't know if the 5 pointer from Mara can be challenged as much because I also knew Chandra's 5 pointer immediately, and I'm someone, anyone who's watched our channel can go back and see for the longest time I Star Trek is an absolute weakness for me because I just never seen them. So it was unless it's something you can read on Wikipedia, it's an absolute blank out for me. I'd never know it. But recently I've gone through and started watching the films, and so I'd seen the Final Frontier maybe a couple weeks before that match aired, and as soon as they said it immediately, I was like Shakari, and like I remember it from the film, and it's like that's not really a huge deep dive. You have like kind of like with Mask of the Phantasm, you do have to have seen the movie to know it. Maybe you can't guess as much on that one, but it's not as deep as I think other 5 pointers have gone in the past. Like that's a said more than once. It's a main plot point of the film.
It is
Um,
it is not super deep. My only
and there's a
argument
difference
that
between
would
the
be
two,
is,
but
yeah, it's because it's if you've never seen it, you can't use like situational context to try to
sure.
figure that one out. Like
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
I'll be honest, I didn't know that one, but I mean, I'm glad glad you did.
No, yeah, yeah. And it is I was curious because I wonder if there is because it sounded familiar even when I'd seen the film and then I talked about this one of the matches I played in our geek league I got absolutely obliterated because I got round two. It was they got Spinner's Choice, I got Opponent's Choice, and Lord of the Middle Earth and Star Trek were the two that came up. So one way or the other, I was getting obliterated. Um, and but I remember for that match, just because I knew Star Trek was a strength of my opponent, I started just going through the Wikipedia pages just to see if I could pick up any information. And so when I saw the movie, Shakari sounded familiar, and so I decided to go to the Wikipedia page. And so like Lawrence Luckenbill plays Cybok, and there's actually more on his Wikipedia, like his sect for his character. They focus more on the almost casting of Sean Connery than they do anything about Lawrence Luckenbill, and it is actually in there that they named Shakari after Sean Connery because they tried to get him in the film and it didn't work. That's what it's named for. So
Fascinating.
so it is there, but like most people wouldn't think to go look for that. That's just me not knowing Star Trek. Like, let me research Wikipedia and see what they
There's a
have to
lot that you
say.
can get done. I have gotten in practice matches. You wouldn't believe how many questions I've gotten right on movies I haven't seen.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
that's definitely part of it.
I mean, like I've made a thing of, and I've made a strength out of in the few fan leagues matches I've played out of movie release dates because I just have a really good memory for things I've read. So almost any Wikipedia page I've ever surfed through, if I've read the release date, there's a great chance I can remember it. Like the weirdest one for me was this was years ago. I played a fan league match, and the first question out the gate on movie release dates was what year did Legally Blonde, Red, White, and Blonde come out?
Oh my
And the
goodness.
fact, and I haven't even seen the first one of that, but I instantly knew 2003. Like there was no question about it. I knew it right away because
Wow.
I've read it somewhere on Wikipedia and it just
I'm
stuck with my brain.
I'm still working on it, but I have a stack of note cards that I've put from each note card is a year. It's like 1966 through
Oh,
2021.
chronological?
Yeah, and
That's
so what I just
incredible.
do is I have the list, and I'm basically all I'm doing is I get to a movie on the list, look it up, put it on its respective card for years, and we have 300 movies. I'm still
Right.
working on that list. It's thick
It
because
is.
I'm doing
It's
a lot of different kinds of study. Like I'm not going to unveil all my secrets, but
no, no,
that's
no.
one of the ones I'm doing. And so that when I know I have a match, whether it's a practice match or whatever, the first thing I do is I have my study notes that are actually like plot stuff, and then I have my release date stack. They're like kind of like my two main studies. First thing I do is go through the release dates, and like I said, I've gotten questions right that were release date based just because I through those
Right,
cards.
yeah, just flash it quickly and
Yeah.
get a look at it.
Well,
So
what's
so
great
let
about that is association also, because
yeah.
like you'll see it like, oh well, I know Iron Man's in 2008, and all of a sudden you remember what you saw around Iron Man on the
Yep.
card. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and there's absolutely years you can do that for. Like I think it's like 2014. It's like the Winter Soldier, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and X-Men: Days of Future Past all came out within 3 weeks of each other. And
And
then
Guardians is that
later
year
that
too,
year
I
was
think. Yeah.
Guardians, and later after that was Big Hero 6. Like you can start if you remember when you saw something. You're absolutely right. It's a great way to start
You can
putting
definitely see
timelines.
the waves in comic book movies when you're going through these years and stuff, and it'll be
Yeah.
like one movie, two movie, maybe three movies, and all of a sudden there's like seven or eight.
Yeah, there's the exponential growth over time. There's more comic book movies in the last 10 years than there was in the previous 30. And so with something like that, a lot of it's going to fall more recent than it is the older films. Um yeah, so it is interesting. But so again, without kind of delving too much into the private study habits, you talked about working with your faction, and obviously you've said Koi's helped you a lot, Bibbs has helped you a lot.
Got
I'm
a great
sure
team,
some of the other I'm
guys.
sure some of the other inner geekdom specialists in your group have been easy to work with. You mentioned talking with the real rejects. They're both, I believe, is it John that has an IG match scheduled as well this year right now?
John Humphreys versus Saul.
Yeah, getting back into it. And honestly, they surprised me last year when they played Inner Geekdom because I've always loved them. But when they made that move, I was like, this just feels like they didn't have anybody else, so they said F it. But you could tell they really tried to go for it, and they did a good job.
That happened a lot last year, especially with
It did.
Intergeekdom, just kind of across the factions. There was a lot of scrambling. But I mean, it was a weird year. I think the Schmoedown and Harloff and the factions, everyone's really found their footing here. So I think that this is going to be the year to beat. And I hope that like in the second half of it, we get some live matches and just get to,
Yeah.
you know, blend it all together.
I'll get back to my other question in a second, but since you mentioned it, would you do a live match? Like
Yeah,
if you were given the opportunity to go on a stage, would you feel comfortable doing it?
100%. Like I said, I have the experience in drama and stuff, so I've been in front of people before, and I'm sure I've made it more of an ass of myself doing that than I would in the Schmoedown.
Fair enough. There, at least you're walking into a pretty warm room. Nobody's in there to hate you. So,
Right. No, I'd be super excited to do that. Plus the traveling that's involved there. Like if I can get an excuse to go to LA, or maybe go to Disneyland while I'm down there.
I was gonna say I know when they were here in Orlando, they definitely went to Universal while they were here just because they could. Like, I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
why
Well,
not? It's right there.
I'm kind of close to Seattle, so I mean that'd be really cool if they come up to Seattle. I think that's a big mecca to do a live match.
Yeah, and that's a place they haven't gone yet, so you'd be getting a different source of crowd out from that area.
Yeah.
Because
Everyone's
really
got
that
to stop
whole
being an idiot up here first, though.
I can speak the same down here, man. Yeah, people are going crazy when they get the opportunity to. So I'll get back to what I was saying a minute ago. What has the kind of the in-house training, as much as you're willing to say, kind of been like with the practice matches and all that stuff? Like, is it as intensive as everyone makes it sound like to give you the best prep?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's been a lot of fun. And now we're starting to develop more personal connections and stuff. So just kind of like what I've heard in the Schmoedown before, where it's the same for us. Sometimes it's just spontaneous texting back and forth. Like you just think of a piece of trivia, text one of your faction mates, and be like, da 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 da. Do you know this? And then if you don't, you're sharing information. You're building each other up, sending videos to each other and things. And I think we have a really great rapport going, like especially just on our Twitter feeds and our messages and stuff like that. So everyone's been great. I know everyone's studying. I'm excited to see the free for all because I have a pretty good idea of what our lineup is going into that, and
Okay, all right.
it's yeah, the studying's been great. Obviously, they focus on whoever has matches come up, so I got a lot of the attention off the bat. But pretty soon here, I'll be able to shake that off a little bit and privatize my study and try to help some of our other competitors thrive and strive through the tournament or through the matches.
Through the matches, yeah. Yeah, I forgot about that. The free for all was obviously announced. It's 5 people per faction, right? You guys are sending 5 combatants in.
Yes.
Awesome. That'll be looking forward. That'll be something to look forward to, obviously. So I was gonna say, we're getting ready to wrap up, so I have just another couple questions here. So the first is, earlier on we talked about, and obviously you don't have to commit to anything with this, but we talked about um, your love of film and how you said it obviously started with Geek, but it did start to stretch over. You said you're not ready for singles, but over the last year, we have seen more and more players who were consistently inner Geekdom players start to stretch over into teams as kind of a B player, especially because now inner Geekdom slices are allowed in teams. If Koi came to you and said, I have a person who wants to pair with you in teams, is that an offer you accept?
100%. I've brought up before that I'd be willing to go into teams. Obviously, I'm not studying those films right now because it's not even on my,
Radar.
my
Yeah.
dossier or my itinerary. But I'd be open to it. I'd be excited to it because I love films. Right now, I think that we have, for the most part, our teams set up for the faction. But if anything were to change or shift, obviously I have one of the greatest teams in the entire league on my
Yeah.
faction with Shazam.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mention Brendan Meyer, but Brendan Meyer's also been very helpful in my study and very supportive. And so if I were to ever join a team and go into that division, I can lean on those guys and we could have some really awesome study sessions and they could help prepare me for that. Like right now, today, I'd probably not, but it's one of those things that like I wouldn't be starting from zero. I wouldn't need 60 days to enter
Right.
the teams.
Yeah.
Just some
Um,
freshening up, just some study shifting.
yeah, exactly. Take the methods and just put them elsewhere for the moment.
Exactly.
And so I guess we'll make this the final question. Because so obviously you're first on the docket, but we have another month's worth of matches afterwards that are happening. And you can go with your faction mates, you can go outside of your faction mates. But what are some of those other matches coming up that excite you as someone who is a fan still to watch?
Um, it's gotta be Jeff Snyder and Dan Merle,
Oh
probably.
yeah,
Because I don't know if we have two bigger titans in the league going up against each other like that anytime soon. And the fact that they've managed to avoid a one-on-one match with each other is just out of this world.
yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff Snyder got Player of the Year last year.
He
Yeah.
did.
So, and Dan Merle was in the championship for singles at the end of the year. And
Yeah.
Dan Merle is not called the most okay of all time. He's the greatest of all time because he's got the experience. He's got a record that is daunting. And, Jeff wants to talk his smack and say he's not the GOAT until he beats me. All right, then beat him. I'm really looking
Exactly.
forward to that. And like I said, usually I'm focused on inner geekdom, but it's hard to ignore Snyder and Merle.
Yeah. And again, I mentioned it earlier for myself, and I'm not just saying this because I have somebody from the faction here, but I believe it's Paul and Bibbs, and then Chance and Brendan. Those two excite me because those are four players at the top of their game, taking each other on, and I would say all of them have a record at the moment that does not show their greatness. I mean, I think Chance still has a negative record. That's certainly not fair. Brendan's had some hard losses. So it'll be interesting to see how those go. And even though I placed a bet on the people that I know personally, either one winning there is a win for the Schmoedown.
Absolutely. I think those are both going to be absolutely phenomenal matches. And I know those guys are studying hard. And Bibbs knows a lot about Oyama. And so I fear for Paul because I think that the beast is hungry and he's coming after him. Really, really looking forward to that. This will be my first time getting to like watch a match and root for a faction mate, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, really excited. The singles is starting up. Like, I mean, all the matches are going to be great, but the way that singles is looking and shaping up and starting out is they're going hard.
They're throwing out the like IG and Star Wars. They're bringing in the newer players and kind of getting them going first. Whereas with singles it's like all the players who either showed prospect last year or the Titans that are going at it very quickly. Like they are getting into it. So I thought of one more question as we reach the hour mark. We'll start to wrap up, but I feel like this is a very, very important question that everybody has to know the answer to. When are you getting your soaps from Bibiani?
When am I getting my what?
Your soaps from Bibiani.
Oh, my soaps. Well, maybe after my first Schmoedown check, you know, just throw it right back into the community.
There we go. But, well, guys, that is the interview. Jesse, thank you so much for coming back once again. I'd love to have you back in the future. Maybe we'll get a couple of those matches in first and give us something new to talk about.
Absolutely.
But thank you for coming back once again, man. It really is appreciated. Where can people find you on social media? Plug yourself.
All right. Well, as you can see on my handle that I got right here, you can find me on Twitter at Jesse Swift. Also, you can find me on Stereo at the Jackal. And I'm doing conversations every so often. Just had one with David Campbell where we talked about upcoming matches and the Schmoedown, talked a little bit about Mortal Kombat and various other things, WandaVision. And then also on YouTube, most importantly, and that is my review and discussion channel, and that is Flick hyphen the letter N hyphen Real, spelled REEL. So it's the Flick in Real Fancast. We've been keeping up on WandaVision, doing trailer reactions for Mortal Kombat, Justice League, and the like. Definitely trying to grow that. Recently just set up our Streamlabs. So if you guys could go and donate to that, that would be awesome. We want to just throw that right back into the channel and grow and expand it.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on, man. Once again, much appreciated, and absolute best of luck to you in the match. As somebody who knows him, Amaru is no small task, but I think if there's anyone who has the clear dedication to want to beat him to prove it, it's definitely you. So best of luck, man. Looking forward to it. Be sure, not that I have to tell people watching a Schmoedown show to watch the Schmoedown, but be sure to check that out in 2 days' time when it goes up on Wednesday, March 3rd. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you're not subscribed, please be sure to subscribe, like the video, click the bell for notifications. We have all sorts of content going up on the channel, SchmoeTalks, every Monday at 7 o'clock. Next week, we will be back with our continuation of our flashback series, Season 4, the first half of Season 4. We will be back with other shows on the channel. On Friday, we are launching a new show. We are now doing an hour show dedicated to reviewing all the latest shows and episodes coming out. Recently, we've been doing WandaVision reviews as a part of our podcast show After Dark. Now it'll be its own separate thing. We'll be talking about episode 8, the finale, and the show as a whole next Friday. Plus, I have the opportunity to see Raya and the Last Dragon before it releases fully on Friday, both to theaters and Disney+, so I'll be giving my spoiler-free review of that film as well. Saturdays, we have After Dark, moving to a new time at 9 p.m. EST because it's easier for all of us, so check that out. Sundays at noon, we have the Supernova Show and our 2 sports-related shows, Inside the Horseshoe for football and Suplex City Chats for wrestling, are currently on a hiatus, but they will be back as soon as we can with those. Once again, thank you guys for watching. Please be sure to subscribe, and we will see you guys next week here on SchmoeTalks. Take care.